Hey guys, Jen here. Sammy too. This isn't gonna be too long, I hope, but it was a little too involved for a upload like I wanted to do. So yeah, here we go. Let me make this as quick as possible, but I have to give background and context for people who might stumble upon the video. Before you call me crazy in an already crazy world, I will be giving a spiritual interpretation of physical events in my surroundings, but I will also be giving a possible real world, mankind, very visceral explanation as well. So I'm not going to tell you what to think or believe. That is up to you to interpret and go with your best explanation. Let's make sure comments are on. There we go. All right, and if anyone's here, let's get started. I apologize. I'm still a little raspy after my ugly cry. So first, let's look at this root word, imprecate, called down by prayer, typically of curses or malevolent desires. So let me tell you what Psalms are. Psalms in the Old Testament are basically songs, songs. We got songs today, are music from Psalms, okay? They were verses that were typically set to music. Now, a lot of them were lamentations. Remember, they were written by man, but inspired by God or of God. That's an important distinction to make. Oftentimes, David is having a hard time. Now, the Bible says you're either blessed or cursed. God himself says this. You can't have a blessing and a curse passing through your life at the same time. Though we do both have dark and light within us at the same time, you cannot be under a blessing or a curse at the same time, which is actually a good thing. Because how could you receive the fullness of any blessing if at that same time you're under a curse? Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So, now that that's out of the way, let's get to story time. And again, the reason I do this is basically just to document. It is not to, I don't even know how to classify this. It's not to brag or point at myself or say I'm special because I see these things or notice these things. It's not, these things aren't easy to talk about because most people troll me for it, and I get very ugly hate mail, and well, I've shown you guys all that before. So anyway, at work, well, let me tell you, yet again, I saw somebody who is allegedly deceased. Let's back up. My dad passed away. I took care of him as he was passing away. I couldn't bear it no more. He was just kind of a body, a shell, lying there after 3 days of no verbal communication and me just changing him and all this, that, and the other, sleeping in a chair. I finally left, called my husband to come get me so I could see my children, and I needed some rest, and while I was away, my father died. I was a nurse aide for a few years, several years, and in the course of that time, not one of my residents ever died in my presence. Not one. That's strange. In high school, my best male friend, because I was quite the tomboy growing up, my best across the street friend died at 16. Allegedly, he killed himself. He shot himself twice. What a feat that was. And then my high school sweetheart, who was also part of that same clique, was shot and killed 6 months later. And I lost another high school friend to cancer a few months in that same time period. And when I was 10 or 11, I think it was, two senior softball players who used to help coach and referee for us juniors, junior league at the time. So I was younger. I was like 10 maybe. A sister of one of my friends, of someone on my team. Two young girls were killed by alleged, Satanists, rock and roll long-haired boys who picked them up. They didn't know, took them back home, and allegedly did something heinous to them and ended them. One of them was still alive that they dumped in a park, and that's how they found who did it. I'm telling you this because I was exposed to death at a very young age, and it was something that, and it's something we all talk about, right? We see our animals pass on, we see our relations pass on. The food that we eat is ended before we partake of it. We know this. But I think there's something strange about it. I think it's strange that very rarely are there. I think it's strange. Okay, I'm just going to say for now, there's something odd about death. It is not what we've been told. I'm going to leave it there for now. I will also say yet again, the memorial service that is next to me has never had a service that I can tell all of the times I've rode my bike by it in all of the years that I've lived here. It always looks like a brand new parking lot. It always looks like brand new paint in the parking lot. The grass is always the same length. No one is ever coming or going. Someone the other day that came in, a customer, said someone passed away that they knew and was going to be laid out there. Isn't that ironic? You see, I know I'm monitored and I know people watch the channel. So somebody comes in a couple times now and I'm just stupefied. As an artist, especially as an artist who primarily focuses on portraits, when I was 15, I won a congressional award and I got to meet and have a banquet dinner with Rick Santorum and get my picture taken with him and shake his hand for a portrait that I did of Miles Davis in black ink. I know faces. I also was a cosmetics manager and I did makeovers on family, friends. I was a quote-unquote influencer on Facebook. I did makeup. I tell you my background again, not to brag, but in an effort to build trust so that you understand I do know what I'm talking about. So when trolls come around and say, "You're crazy," I hope you understand the level of maturity and intelligence that they are lacking. Okay? I'm not trying to pick on anyone. I'm merely stating what should be obvious. I was never super intelligent and I was never super street smart. And in fact, I've always been kind of gullible that my spouse, when he was still, I guess, in love with me or whatever, when he was still normal, often had to tell me things to make sure I was watching out for myself because I wasn't very self-aware. People took advantage of me all of the time. It was just the way life went for me. And it still does to a degree. Again, I'm telling you this as context because I started the channel over. You might have missed some of this. And again, it's an effort to build trust. So you understand, I'm not just some crazy person who reads tarot cards and tries to skim people out of money. I don't do any of those things and I never have. I would not charge people money for those types of things. I would not do those types of things for other people. If God gives me a word for you, I might give it to you if you're receptive to it. If not, then I probably wouldn't. And I definitely would not charge you money for it. So there's that. So imprecate is the root word of imprecatory. An imprecatory psalm is what you say when you want evil to come down upon your enemies. Let me be clear here. Christ told us to pray for our enemies. But pray, and let me be very clear, pray for good things or pray for bad things. Pray simply means to communicate. Okay? And I'm going to make this very clear, and I might do a short on this. Ask earnestly. Pray to God or saint to pray. And praying to saints has been around longer than the Protestant church has been around. Okay? They want us to be powerless. They don't want us to have any helpers. They don't want us to have any help. They don't want us calling down the angels. They don't want us calling down the heavenly council. They don't want us sending demons to the foot of the cross for their judgment so that they don't return to us with 8 more. They don't want us doing these things because they want us overrun with demonic energies, lower level Um, and I don't want to say light because that's almost not, but it really is. It's a lower level light entity. I believe it resides in the physical sense. It is represented by what we call black goo. That's my best physical interpretation, and that's kind of what I do. I take the puzzle that is reality and I look at it with a spiritual lens, and I try to make sense of it for myself, and then I pass it along to those who are receptive. And receptive, those who are willing to receive the message. And if your brain receives information in the same way that mine does, maybe you can be helped by what I share. Okay, so after my mom died in 2015, my dad died in 2012, I saw my mother in a shopping mart here in Ohio, which is an hour and a half away from where she passed away and where she lived. She did not stop and say hello. She did not recognize me, and she did not look exactly the same, meaning her face looked the same, but she did not weigh the same. She was a lot lighter, okay? That's important, but I don't know how just yet. I've seen a woman I cared for who was the mayor's mother. Again, I'm not giving names. I'm not breaking any laws by giving out this information. I'm not breaking any HIPAA laws by giving out their medical information, okay? So, again, this is part of my testimony, and I obey God before I obey any man. But, again, I'm not breaking any laws because I'm not giving out names, locations, facilities, none of those things. I'm just saying, I know these people and I see them now again walking about town. So I saw this woman walking about town with another woman that I used to care for, both of whom were in wheelchairs at the time, both of whom had Alzheimer's at the time. But now they were walking about at yard sales. I saw who might have been my father, a lot younger, running down the sidewalk. Now this is an important distinction because he was a lot younger and he doesn't belong here, right? He's not local here. He did not grow up here. I do not know him from here. He was also running by very fast, and I was in the yard with Sammy, so I don't want to say that's a definite or a definitive thing because I'm just not sure. But he did have a hat and the dark glasses, and he was dressed like he used to dress. Walking out of a convenience store locally, I saw my spouse's uncle, who has been deceased for some years now, 5 to 10 years. He looked exactly the same as if he had not aged a day. My spouse did not recognize him, did not say a word. Okay? He interacted with the environment. He smiled. He pushed the door open, walked through the door. He did his business in the store. So it's not like I'm having hallucinations of things or people who are not there. These people are physically there and present. Okay? Who else? There goes the ringing in the right ear, which means I believe it's an angel talking to me. I believe I know which one. I'm not going to say. And right ear is like good or yes, and left ear is no or bad. And if it's both ears, it's like, pay attention. Pay attention. Yeah, dumb girl. Anyways, and I know people, they're going to think what they're going to think. I can't convince you of anything. This is just part of this bigger story, and I promise to tell my part. And I don't know how it's going to fit into the fabric of society, but I hope it helps. I'm not doing a voice, and that's not happening. That's not going to happen. I don't do that. Why would I agree to do anything with anyone who is just going to tear me to pieces? No, thank you. He openly calls people retards. He has the maturity level of an 8-year-old. No, I'm not doing that. This channel might not be polished. I might not have a studio, but I'm going to maintain as much class and integrity as possible. And yes, I might talk about things that are fringe or strange to others, but I do so with as much class and integrity and righteousness as possible. I will not do that with him unless it's something that God himself requires of me. I do not consent. So you're wasting your time by asking me, okay? I don't know why people don't understand this. Why can't people detect these internet bullies when they see them? The dude is proving our point. He is electronically harassing and stalking people like me. I never met him. He wasn't on my radar. Didn't know who he was. I did a few videos about the stalking in my community that I've experienced. I know exactly why it's happening, when it started, who started it. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. The burden of proof is not on me. I don't need to know or believe. I already do. If you all want to know or believe, the burden of proof is on you, not me. And I don't mean any offense, but if you're offended, sorry. How does one improve and change if they own the echo chamber? I'm not an echo chamber, though. So I have plenty of fellowship with people on the channel, with people I interact with in town. Whether they're nice or not nice, it's still a refinement process. And plenty of saints were secluded and isolated by God so that the Holy Spirit alone could teach them, because the world had become too corrupt. God voiceness. No, I'm not talking to him. It's not happening. Anyway, back to my story. So, you guys know, if you want to go through the videos, you can. I've spoken about this before. So I know it's not a hallucination. I've tested it. These people interact with the environment. So what is going on? So let me tell you about something else that happened. There's this woman that I used to tend to and take care of when I worked in an assisted living only section of a place. And this woman ended up really not liking me. She disliked me to the point that one day when I went into work, I was told that I could not go to her room. I was not to approach her or even speak to her. I was never told why she didn't like me. They just said sometimes older people are that way, and I was not to talk to her. And I was hurt. And then a nurse on another shift sends me to her room. And I said, you understand that I'm not supposed to be going to her room. I was told not to. She does not want me in there. And this nurse made me go to her room. And so I did. The funny thing is I respected this woman. Turns out, she had told me this story about her dad and him being a doctor, and how her mother had passed away of cancer, and how she had to have something done because he didn't want to lose her too, but it ensured that she would not be a mother. And how she was in a group called the First Daughters of America or something like that. And it was like suffragates. So they were basically the first feminists in America. And I don't mean feminists as we see it today. I mean true feminists who just wanted not to be sold like slaves, not to be beat by their husbands. They wanted true, I don't even want to say equality, because that word has gotten ugly connotations now too. But they just wanted true, respect, human dignity. They just wanted treated with humanity, with some humaneness, with compassion, and they just wanted to be free from abuse, right? They wanted to be free from abuse in their own person, and some type of autonomy. They didn't want their father and their husband to have so much control over them, because that's a good thing when the father or the husband is a compassionate and loving person. But when those men in your life are ungodly, and they're greedy and wicked, and they're opportunists. Sad, I never even knew what that word meant until somebody told me that somebody in my life was an opportunist. And then my eyes started opening to the fact that this person is exploiting me any way that they can and trying to earn from it. But back to my point, I thought that was pretty cool that she was a part of that. And, but she didn't like me. Now, I I look like a rather feminine woman. I'm kind of a tomboy. I fish, I bait my own hook. I love to fish. I love to hike. I like to ride my bike. Before I hurt my back and got fibro, I was super active. Played sports, but I do my hair, put on a little makeup. My dad always said that my mother should have me looking like a princess when I walked out the door. Funny thing, no one ever told me his name meant king and my name meant princess. In one of the princess and or white wave, white spirit. And I love Snow White. I never knew these things until I finally started getting curious about why nobody ever told me about my own family or history. Anyways, so she hated me. And it hurt. Like, I would go home, and I'm the type of person, I would lose sleep over it, and I would cry over this stuff. So I see this woman, I see her in my line, and it's been a good 10 years since I seen her. And I don't know if she's dead or alive at this point. All I know is that now she's living as a man. She has pants on. She's no longer in a wheelchair, a flannel, and a hat. And she, too, is thinner. But now she has no teeth. None at all. When I knew her at the home, she had a few. She had some. Now she has none. No teeth. And I've told you guys about this, and I don't mean to bring this up. But I talked to God, and I believe he talks back. And I said to him, and I told you everything works in reverse for me. Like, now I'm recognizing the fact that certain things that happened in the last 5 years, I actually have prayed for and I consented to. I've asked God, don't pass these curses or things along to my children. Let it end with me. Let me receive whatever it is they were supposed to receive, if it means they can be saved. Whatever I got to go through, for whatever good my testimony can do, for whoever possibly can see it, even if it's only one other person, let it be done. So I try not to complain anymore, especially since I kind of prayed all this into being, for what's happening to me, not the world, myself. So anyways, I told God when I first moved into this house, which would be 2019, when CV started, right when I started really doing videos every day and witnessing for God, right when I got into a groove. I was praying to God, and I said, I'm so dumb, God, and it's not your fault. You don't make junk or anything. You called us good. I said, it's my fault. I said, I just, I've sinned so much at this point that I've blinded my own self, and I don't know who my enemies are. And you gave me such a good heart that all I see is the good in people and what could possibly be, or their potential. I don't see what's right in front of me. I said, so, since I can't spiritually discern always when somebody has bad aim towards me, when somebody has bad designs on me or wicked intent, give me a physical sign, let me see something physically to know that they're my enemy. And then I read this, and I read it aloud in my closet. That's how messed up this all made me. The head trauma, not being able to trust anybody, being severely abused by a person who at least looks like someone I loved very much and had children with. I slept in my closet, and I made it a prayer closet, and I slept in there for a long time. And now I sleep alone with just Sammy and the door shut and locked. Sometimes a chair in front of it. It's not funny to do this to someone, to do this to another being. It's not cool. It's not okay. It's not fair. It's not righteous. It's not, hey, will you put yourself in that position? No. If somebody trusts you and makes themselves vulnerable with you because they love you, you're responsible for their well-being at that point. These people don't want to be responsible for the harm that they're doing, and they are. But back to the matter at hand. You know how many strange verses there are about teeth in the Bible? Let me show you something. And again, I'm not judging. I'm not making a blanket statement. There are exceptions to every rule. But stereotypes exist for a reason, because somewhere in them there is a grain of truth. So I just want to show this to you. Again, I'm not making fun of anybody. My mother, when she came back, and again, I don't know what happened. I just know that me and my mom were very, very close, and I loved her very much, and she loved me very much. And For a time, I was left with my step grandma and her step adopted mother. And when she came back, she was different. And I even had a dream at that point that my dad unzipped himself and inside there was a troll. And I told my dad that. And he said, "How do you think that makes me feel?" And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't control my dreams." But I think, during your whole life, God or source or your maker, your creator will prepare you. Your higher consciousness will prepare you for the things that's going to come to you. Just like in a video game, you pick something up, you don't know what it's for. You just know that you might need it later, so you put it in your rucksack, right? That's kind of how life is. And if you look back, you recognize these things. But most people are on autopilot so much right now that they're not even seeing the Easter eggs that are laid in their path for them, so they're passing them by. So anyway, I told God, I said, please give me a physical sign to see on these people so I know when they're my enemy. It doesn't have to be physical to everyone else. Just let me see something. Let me see the seal of God on them or the mark of this other one. And then I read this poem, and I read it, this psalm, and I read it aloud. World filled with distractions 24/7. Absolutely. Hi, Windsor. Psalm 58:6. O God, shatter their teeth in their mouth. Break out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. Now, lion is used interchangeably. Christ is often called the Lion of Judah, okay? You have to understand, and people need to understand this. Stars, angels are often called the shining ones because each of us has a star for us, right? Just because they shine, though, doesn't mean they're good, right? They might have went over to darkness. But they're beautiful to us, right? That's why we're vulnerable here, because we love beauty. We like pretty things. Most people don't even know that gargoyles were put on Catholic churches back in the day to scare away evil spirits. It's not because we're all devil worshippers. How messed up would it be if we found out that angels really look like demons and demons really look like angels? How messed up would that be? And I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying. Maybe that's why we're not supposed to make pictures of them. And I think that people twist that verse, so I'm not going to go too deep with that because I paint and draw, and I've painted and drawn angels at times, right? But I think the point is, and again, I think that's why we move out of the Old Testament. It's to spiritually evolve. We cannot trust our eyes alone. It has to come from the heart. It has to be the heart too. So please trust me when I say this is not a blanket statement I'm making. But I am saying that in this time and in these days and in the end of this age, spiritual matters are coming to the physical and they're bubbling up to the surface on purpose, intentionally, so that we can see them. All the spiritual rot that people have inside of them, it's going to start literally affecting their bodies, their temples. You're going to start seeing this soon. Remember how the Bible also talks about boils and all these things? It comes from spiritual sickness. STD, spiritually transmitted dis-ease in the spirit. Oops. Okay. So this is David, and he's basically on the run. He's hiding in caves. They want to kill him. Okay. So this is basically David begging for God to hear him and speak with him and to dash his enemies upon the rocks, because it is just David against an army. So people need to have context. What kind of God would speak this way? This is David speaking to God. They say it's inspired of God because he's speaking with God. So much of this is taken out of context and not properly understood. And yes, I know this because English was my major. That's something that I know. I would never try to teach you algebra. I'm not good at that. I go to other people for gematria help and, things with numbers, even sacred geometry, though I'm an artist. I'm much better using like a spirograph and a ruler and stuff than drawing a straight line. So, anyways, this is him begging for help, all right? And this is him basically cursing the wicked with his word, because the word is the sword of the Spirit. Your tongue is your sword. All these people, the cults of the Hebrew Israelites teaching this young generation that Jesus come with a sword. It's not a real sword. This is poetic language, all built upon metaphors, similes, parables. It's all parabolic language. Okay? It's not literal. Jesus doesn't literally come with a sword. His sword is his tongue, and it brings truth. And when you speak truth to people and they know something's true, it can make them go literally mad, like when the Pharisees pulled out their hair. They didn't want to hear what Christ was bringing. They wanted to be in charge. They wanted to tell the scribes what to write. They wanted to tell the people what to do, because they were stuffing their own coffers. And it's been that way for centuries. And it's shameful. As much as I love the Catholic Church, and as much as I love churches in general, just to see people getting together and hanging out with each other and praising together and singing together. Nowhere else can you see people singing together like that, whether they sing good or bad, all together, all at once. And it's beautiful. It doesn't matter to me what denomination they are. But anyway, I saw this woman that used to hate me at work, and she had no teeth. And you know all my stories about the people that follow me. None of them have teeth. They all wear the dark sunglasses like they live to hide their eyes. And so I saw this woman, and she had no teeth, and now she's dressed like and living like a man. I don't think she thought I would recognize her. She was massaging the coworker, and I told you there was a story with this woman. And I looked at her hands, and the hands will always give you away. You don't have to look at anything else. Those people showing the hips and the shoulders. Man, I have really big shoulders for a female. I'm big-shouldered. Everything else about me is like curvy and short and I don't want to say small because I'm not really small, but if you looked at just my shoulders, you'd be like, wow, those are some manly shoulders. But anyways, hands give it away. That's why there's an episode on Seinfeld called Man Hands. If some really petite, small hands, those are womanly hands. Almost 9 times out of 10. Again, I don't make blanket statements. I'm not saying this is everybody. I'm not saying to unrighteously judge everybody by appearance. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in these times that we're in, nothing should go without examination. And there are no coincidences anymore. And that it seems like every person who is my legitimate enemy has false teeth. The spouse who almost killed me a couple of times now, I hate to say it, but my grandma, but I think that might have just been old age, because some of hers were still real. Who else? Those people that stalked me and followed me around. A couple of the people here on YouTube who've tried to get me away from this area and or to talk to them, they didn't have any. And they're young. Like, these people are very young. And they want to say that all this drug abuse will make you lose your teeth and pop drinking. I'm ashamed to say that I drink more pop than I should. At least right now I go through spurts. But when I was a kid, I chewed way too much bubble gum. Like, way too much. And that has sugar in it. Like, I've done just as much as anyone else, is what I'm saying. And I've also partaken of substances. I've done videos on that. I'm going to do another one. I think the other one was taken down, and I think it's important to mention the doorways that opens. But, yeah. I don't have any problems with my teeth. I only ever had one cavity, and I had it filled at the doctor's demand, and I've asked them to take that filling out because the old fillings have mercury in them, and that's not good for your vessel, and they won't even take it out for me. So I suspect I've been experimented on in ways that I have no concept of for a long time now. Most of us who go to doctors and dentists are without our awareness. We have no idea that this is going on. And the stuff they show you on television is just for them to show you that, hey, we did this. Unless you say you don't want it, it's going to continue. Like the alien abductions, all them people being chipped. And I don't think Morgellons is what they're showing either. I think it's very suspect that these people are, that certain individuals they show are growing red and blue things. That looks a lot like something else. And I'm not going to say what, but I question a lot of how, I question context and framework of how things are being presented to us. I think we have to disregard that totally, examine it with our own eyes and our own senses, and come up with our own theories and then test them ourselves. That's what I think that's the point we're to. So anyway, I saw this woman, and I told her, I said, wow, you look just like somebody I used to take care of. And I told my coworker that too. The next day, somebody comes through my line, and it's the old nutritionist that I used to work with at this place. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you look great. And she's like, oh, do you remember so-and-so who didn't like you? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, well, she passed. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. Yeah, she didn't like you. Something about your headband or something. And I'm like, really? She didn't like me because I cut partially cover my head. I've always worn bandanas and headbands. I didn't need to read the Bible to like understand certain things like that. And she said, well, I don't know what it was, but it was something like that. But just don't you worry over it. But yeah, she passed away. So here's the thing. Either a lot of people want me to believe that people are rising up from the dead, or there's a really big insurance scam going on. And let me just declare, hey man, I'm down with Robin Hood. I could care less what money you're stealing, how you're funneling it, how you're laundering it. I don't care, okay? What I care about is when there's victims that are being harmed. Trafficking, human beings being sold, human beings being abused, treated like trash, garbage. Those are the things that I personally care about, that I do not consent to. People run scams with money. No victim, no crime, right? Here's the problem with this. Hey, Michelle. People, and I'm getting a little triggered, so I am stepping out to smoke. I apologize. I don't do this very often, but the testimony is getting a little intense for me, so I do get a little triggered. No worries. So anyway, either a lot of people are running game and scamming me. And again, I could care less what people do as far as money goes in their own lives. Do what you do. If you can figure something out to where you don't have to spend every day slaving away, go at it, man. We should be exploring this realm. That's what we should be free to do. We shouldn't have to pay for utilities. Energy, I think, is free. And I think there's a lot of people, the secret societies, I don't think those people work at all. I really don't. I think we have a pretty much self-sustained unit or society here. I think God gave us a pretty self-sustaining system here. So, I think we're being scammed on the energy front too. And we're scammed on the money front, to be honest. And food grows on trees, right? Food does grow on trees. So technically, we don't have to work unless we want these fancy toys. And people seem to want their fancy toys. I'm all down with like meeting for the eclipse and then like becoming vagabonds if the world continues on after that. Because I've pretty much had it with electronics. I've had it with society. And at that point, I'll have had it with this area. Because either a lot of people are running game on me and thinking they're cute. And that's the thing. People like me are the victim in this. Do you know how flippin' exhausting and frightening all this is? It's not cool to make people think it's the end of the world. Like, that's not okay with me. The one element, though, and here's the thing. Some of you have heard my testimony since day one. There are certain things in my testimony that are unexplainable, that do appear to be supernatural or spiritual, whatever you prefer. And it really is odd that so many people seem out to get me. And I have nothing. Like, I'm not a popular person. I don't have money. I don't run in circles anymore. I don't have associates that all I know is that it can't be about me. I'm not an important person to anybody anymore. So, except Sammy and my dogs. So, it definitely is not about me. It has to be about somebody close to me, though. Or else I don't think I'd be getting such a hard time. But, so that's the real world example or possibility, is that people are running game on me and they literally are running scams on life insurance, and they did not think I would keep the secret, which at this point, I'm telling the 20 people who will see this video, because people need to know at this point. Because there are a lot of us who are victims and have been physically and spiritually and mentally harmed because other people were greedy. And that's where they went wrong. If they would have just done their thing and not included us or whatever, if they would have just done their thing and not included us, fine, whatever. But a lot of us have been damaged because they wanted us out of the way because they thought we wouldn't go along with the program. And again, I could care less about money. Steal from the rich, give to the poor. But the more I see, the more the Bible seems to prove itself to be true. This is why I tend to just stick to my small circle. I have enough going on. Life always likes to pile it on. See, and I don't look at life that way anymore. I don't ask why me. Why not me? I mean, that type of stuff doesn't really bother me. And another thing regarding the butterfly effect video from yesterday, I've been saying since day one of my testimony that God showed me the darkness. And when I saw the darkness, I knew that he must be real. So I ran back to him, because we cannot see the light and live as we are until we are totally and utterly purified and refined. But now I hear people like Andrew Tater saying that, and I think that's awesome. If us talking about it on our small channel, the Berean channel, the first channel, got this started in a butterfly effect type of way, that's all the reassurance or whatever vindication that I need as far as that goes. Yeah, I saw another allegedly dead person. They're everywhere in this town. I'm seeing them everywhere, but they're living as different, like they're different. Like this one's living as a man instead of a woman, but I know, I'm good with faces. I recognize people. However, the Bible says, those dead in Christ will rise first, and after that, the other ones. Then judgment will come. Lots of pod people, right? And that's my problem with this is Satan's minions, they will be all physical. They will be of this realm, I think. I don't think they will have much spirit, because spirit comes from God and the Holy Spirit. Once you fall, you have some type of spirit, but you can't. How do I phrase this properly? A human being, when you sign on with Satan or when you're of his kingdom, at that point, the bodily raising and all that stuff is different, right? Because it's a counterfeit kingdom. God can raise you up, your body and all. He will transfigure you. He will transmute you through quantum mechanics, and he will resurrect you, right? Like he did Christ. These other people that I'm seeing, they're not restored, right? They're not looking better than they did. They're kind of looking the same, but they're not looking they're not changed in the twinkling of an eye. They look different. And let me tell you, the one person that I saw, our cousin who passed away in 2011 of cancer, allegedly, and all these people dying of cancer and all these people being caught faking cancer, that's another clue. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want the channel to get shut down, and they will come after me for that and probably kill me right then and there. But that's the clue, and I'll give it to you right there. All these people dying of cancer and all the people being caught faking cancer, that is your clue. That is the breadcrumb. Look at it, examine it, and figure it out. Because we have all these people who are always commenting, why does God give cancer to little children? Why does God allow this to happen? You know, why is he a loving God if he gives people cancer? And why do we have all these donations going to things that are never cured or fixed, like homelessness, but we have all these empty houses? Well, they don't want to live by the rules. That's not true. Homeless people want a home. You can't get a job until you have an address. And you can't get a job until you have a good night of sleep. Several good nights of sleep until you begin a job. And you can't begin a job until you have clothes, and you can't have clothes till you have money. You see how it's a circular problem? You need one thing to get the other, to get the other, to get the other. But if we have all these empty houses, put them in a freaking house. The bank doesn't need it. The bank's not a living entity. People, like nobody is examining our reality. That stuff isn't real. It's all illusion. There's something wrong with the entire medical industry. There's something hidden. The man behind the curtain is the Satan of this world, okay? I've figured a lot of stuff out, but I can't come right out and say it because people have to be ready for certain things. And it's not like I'm keeping secrets to hoard truth either. It's just that certain truths are so radical from what we're being told that you won't believe me anyway. Yeah, and I used to work in the healthcare system, and I thought I was helping people. These places are not what they used to be. They're not only are they not what they used to be, they're not what they ever said they were. I mean, they're definitely, as of 2017, everything started to become inverted. You don't go to hospitals anymore for help. That's why I'm worried. I'm glad all this attention is being given to trafficking. But there are more of Satan's people here right now than God's people. God's saints are still in heaven. They have not come down to fight with us yet. I'm never going to be diagnosed because I'm not going to go get diagnosed. Let me ask you this. We have to trust these people who are strangers to us. We have to trust these people in white lab coats who are in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. Think about this. Stop typing a sec. Think about it. We're trusting these people who are strangers to us. They don't know us. We don't know them. They have no true care for us when we walk through the door, okay? And they are in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. Every time they write a script to one of their products, they get a commission for it. Okay? They get commission for that. And cancer is horrible. I watched it take my dad. But I tell you what, it wasn't cancer that killed my dad. It was radiation and, it was radiation poisoning that killed my dad. And morphine. If death is even really a thing, which I have doubts that it is what we've been told it is. I showed you where it didn't even come into the vernacular until the 1800s. What if Christ already came back the second time? What if we are the millennial children? And because we have to have a choice, they had to hide his kingdom from us so that it was fair, so that we got the choice same as everybody else. between good and evil. Because if we just grew up in the good kingdom, we'd have been like Adam and Eve in the beginning. We'd have been bobbleheads. We'd have been droids, basically. We wouldn't have had a choice if we grew up in just a good kingdom. Think about it. Think about it. Think about these things. There's something going on. Something big has been hidden from us for a very long time. Very, very, very long time. And they're giving us clues and breadcrumbs, and they're in every paradigm. The true crime cases that I listen to, especially Ed Gein, his story, there are all kind of clues in his story. And I know it sounds gross. I never used to like serial. I stay away from that stuff. But there are clues there. There are clues when you look at the medical industry a little bit. We're trusting these people who are strangers to us with white lab coats on to tell us that picture of our lung or whatever has a shadow on it. What if it's just a shadow? What if the film wasn't developed properly? Right? What if the technician made a mistake? You know, on Dateline, that every show that I've watched on Dateline that's current, that's what all of them are about, DNA. And you know what they keep repeating over and over and over again? DNA doesn't lie, DNA doesn't lie, DNA doesn't lie, DNA doesn't lie. They want us to trust DNA more than God. DNA might not lie. You know who does lie, though? Man. How hard would it be for them to say, you got a gene in there, and it's of Satan's, you're of Satan's bloodline. Sorry, you can't be helped. You've got the wicked gene. You're wicked. You're a bad egg. There's nothing that's going to help you. You know there's a movie out like that right now on Tubi? That they found people who have a gene, and they call it like the serial killer gene or something. That's not actually what it's called, but that all the serial killers and stuff have this gene in their DNA. And they call it the serpent gene, the serpent bloodline. And why do you think at the beginning of CV, they made a public announcement? I showed you all this in video. They made a public announcement not to have your DNA tested if you were in the military. Think about it. Why do you think the Mormons are so invested in DNA? Think about it. Why do you think the Mormons missionaries are dressed in black and the men in black visit people who talk about UFO experiences? Think about it. And people were followed by black SUVs with tinted windows and no license plates like myself. Think about it. They're setting the stage right now. All this time they've been calling people who talk about aliens crazy. But now you have cops and military personnel coming out saying they're real. They're all in league together, all of them. All of them, and they're not to be trusted. I'm sorry, but they're not to be trusted. They're going to say we got aliens here. They're going to say they're going to solve our problem. They're going to say there's something wrong with some of our DNA. Sorry, we got to get rid of you. That'll make the world a better place. And I hate to say it, but this Sound of Freedom thing, they're going to pin these crimes on the wrong people. The heroes are going to be the criminals. They're going to be the villains. And the bad guys are going to be the ones that are actually the good guys. But the human goals that work for them are just right. Allowed you to see who people really are. Allowed you to see how... Right. Ed Gein, he's the one who they based the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on. And again, like I said, I know how that sounds. But if you read his story and some of the things that he did, again, I don't even think some of these stories are true. I think they're pushed out on purpose to give us clues, to let us figure certain things out without coming out and telling us. I think that breaks the rules if they tell us, because they have to give us the choice. We have to be able to choose. They can't take our free will away, right? So we have to be able to choose between evil and good. I had never even seen real evil. I didn't even believe it existed until a few years ago. When people told me about child harmers and stuff, I was like, yeah, right, that doesn't happen. God wouldn't allow that. My whole problem until I was about 35 years old was that I didn't believe in the devil. Like the person putting the flag at half staff upside down. Yep, same thing as the people sending the emojis with the upside down smiley faces and the peace sign that actually means war right now or F off. We are a nation in distress. People will pretend we are not. They're already pretending that. They're already pretending that. So I hope people start looking at things. And the other option is that it is supernatural. These people are being raised, and yeah. And it's either tribulation time or we are in the generation that is after the millennium and Satan has been released for a short time. And again, I'm not making blanket statements. I'm not saying to hate everybody who has false teeth. Food doesn't even taste the same. It's all different. Yep, it is. Why do you think in the Bible it says it shall be like in the days of Noah? And yet they continued to marry. And marry just means couple. Marry is a word that was used in carpentry. It means to couple, to bring together. So marry actually means fornicate. The word we use is marry, but it means to fornicate, to bring together, to couple. It is to unite. Yeah, marry means to unite. So yet they continued to marry, eat, and drink. Why would God want us to stop eating and drinking? We should be praying for manna in heaven because everything has been... I'll give you a clue. Wear your St. Benedict medals. I do. Wear your St. Benedict medals. And if you don't know what he's for, look it up. Let me see if I could show you real quick. This is what St. Benedict is good for. Sorry, no worries. The St. Benedict medal is a Christian sacramental medal containing symbols and texts related to the life of St. Benedict of Nursia, used by Roman Catholics, Lutherans, what? Okay, what's it for though? Okay. The religious object is also a Christian symbol of opening doors and opening difficult paths. Tradition holds that it protects from curses, evil, and vices, protects against diseases. But what else? There's something very specific it protects against. Hold, please. I'm looking for something very specific. So on the medal is an exorcism, and it basically says in Latin, step back, Satan, okay? It also, on the other side, it says something like, drink the poison yourself. See, this is not a good translation. I shouldn't have went to Wikipedia. Hold, please. Oh, jeez, no. Can you stop? Oy vey. Okay. Saint Benedict is invoked against evil. His medals are considered particularly efficacious against it. This is the medal the church uses when she's had just about enough. The medal itself has an important prayer in the rite of exorcism in an abbreviated form on one side, and on the other an image of Saint Benedict. The story of the medal is startling. Apparently, some monks sought out Benedict, who had been living as a hermit in a cave for 3 years near Naples, Italy. He agreed, but warned them that he would urge them to greater piety and asceticism if he took the job. Some of the lazier, more dissolute monks wanted him out of the picture, so they conspired to poison, pay attention, to poison his bread and wine. Mystically warned of the treachery, but mystically means mentally, spiritually, by what? Higher elevated beings like angels, which is what I say that I speak with, which is what Joan of Arc said she spoke with, which is what a lot of us, even New Age people, say they speak with beings. This is not anything new. It doesn't mean we are crazy. Benedict made the sign of the cross over the food, and the plot was foiled. At his blessing, the cup of wine shattered, and he commanded the two crows who always accompanied him to carry off the poisoned bread, depositing it in a place where it couldn't harm anyone. Okay? That metal protects against poison. There's a reason the food and the drink all taste different. Pray over everything you put in or on your body at this time, especially. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. For such advice, seek your chosen professional. I'm telling you what works for me, and what works for me is fasting. I don't eat much these days. When I do eat, I'm very careful about where I go, who prepares it, and I always, always, always pray over it. We are in dangerous times. It would not surprise me if it was indeed the tribulation. I would love to say that it's the millennial reign and something is being hidden from us. Yes, that's very wise, Odiwan. Very wise. But I'm going to be back later or tomorrow. That's also very wise. And I would like to do something fun. I'm working on a concept, but I don't want to give it away yet because I already have another person who's like straight up just copying my testimony and stuff. I thought it was going to be maybe someone cool that we could fellowship with. But again, this person, like, I don't know why people do that. It's weird. I think it's bizarre. They say it's the sincerest form of flattery when somebody copies you. I just think it makes me feel funky. I don't like it, but whatever. Anyways, you guys stay blessed. Let me know what you're thinking below. If you have a story you'd like to share, by all means, please share it. We can also go live together now. If you think you have something to add or you'd like to chat on the channel with me, we'll talk about it. Let me know. It is plagiarism. I don't care about them sharing the message. The messages should go far and wide as far as stopping evil, standing firm in truth, things like that. But straight up stealing my testimony, God gave me certain commands for a reason. And anyone that tries to emulate or anyone that stands, you have to be warned. At this time, it is a dangerous time to stand for God. And let me make an observation. People like J.P. Sears, okay, and I love J.P. Sears. I don't have anything against him. I think he's funny as heck. But obviously, he's a part of the club with a name like Sears. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. But again, Andrew Tate and J.P. Sears have carried along the message that we pretty much started on our channel, and that was a part of my testimony, that if we see evil, then we know God must exist. We, however, are not the first to do it, just maybe the first of this generation. What was I going to say? Where was I headed with that? Drat. Right. And that's the thing, like, I'm trying to do this to help people. I'm not trying to bank. Like, I'm not trying to be rich or any of those things. But people need to understand. Ask yourself why these big names who are for God suddenly, why they're not claiming Christ. They're just not going that last final step. Why is that? Because they know what time it is. All of Satan's children knows what time it is. They're trying to make sure God's children don't know. Of course his children know. Why wouldn't they know? No one knows the date or the hour that he shall pass away from this earth or pass over to the other side of the veil. No one knows the day nor the hour that Christ shall come again. But it's very possible that Satan and his minions, since they control the system, and I do believe Eden's entrance is on this earth. I believe that Eden is here. Okay? So when I say that Satan is lying, this isn't his realm, that's that's one of those half-truths. I think the system is his. The government, economics, that type of stuff, I think is his. But because it'll never be all his, because we're here. And I think the gates to Eden are someplace here. If you read the book of Adam and Eve, it describes how when they left there, they had to get used to walking on stones and things because they never had to deal with that. And how things were arid and hot and rocky and barren and desert-like. But they lived in a garden. So I think I know where one of the entrances actually might be. But God bless you guys. I love you. Share your blessings with someone today. And you have to understand, we're in a time of persecution. They know this, so they're not going to claim Christ. But it's going to be more than just the people who claim Christ who are going to be persecuted. It's going to be anyone who don't go along with the program. It's going to be anyone who stands up for truth. It's going to be anyone who stands up for humanity. Yeah, I don't like how all these people think it's funny to dress up in women's lingerie. Again, I think it's mocking, and it seems to be a part of their rituals. They all do it, and it's disturbing. Somebody that used to get on the channel sent me a picture like that, and I'm like, okay, I'm done here. Like, what are you doing? Why are you sending me this? It's just, I'm so tired of the feminine being mocked and dirtied. I just don't even, and I have stuff to go do about town, and I'm like, do I even have any, is there any point to me even leaving the house with, I'm just really in dire need of something real at this time. So if you can, please pray for me, but pray for good things. Remember, you can say you're praying for anybody, but maybe you're praying God curses them. We're told to pray for our enemies. Are we praying for good, though, or are we praying for bad? The Bible says you're either blessed or cursed. And David already prayed a long time ago that the ungodly would have their teeth smashed out. So what does that tell us about the ungodly? And why would he ask for that? Why would he ask that the ungodly have their teeth smashed out? David and Goliath, think about that. Could it be that the ungodly were cannibals? Could it be that the giants were cannibals? And that now maybe science has fixed that recessive gene? Maybe they're not giants anymore, but maybe they're still cannibalistic. Every rabbit hole that I've went down, and most of you know this, has led to some form of cannibalism. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Those of us who are true followers of Christ, it is exemplified in the physical. It manifests itself in the physical, which is your body. There will be physical signs that you are His, even if you don't know they're there. The wicked ones, know they're there. They're playing by a rule book that we're not all privy to. Just like we know certain things, they don't know. It's just how the game is played, I guess. However, they cheated at this game of life because they're using something called passive consent. Let me tell you something. Declare loud and proud that you do not recognize passive consent and that you do not consent to passive consent because it is fraudulent. It's not legit. They're using that to continue human experimentation and all these other ridiculous things that we should be past as a whole society. We shouldn't still have war. We shouldn't still have murder. We shouldn't still have baby sacrifices. None of these things should be going on. We should be over it by now. We should see that it brings nothing but suffering. People who blame God, I see them all over the internet. Why does, God who does wars and cancer? That's not God's doing. God didn't do that. That's man. Man does war. But man didn't teach himself how to do that either. That came from the wicked ones. And God knows that. Why do you think all the prophets wish that they could be here in this time, even though it's one of the hardest? Because God's going to give us leniency for certain things. And I'm not saying to go out there and sin. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you don't know what you don't know. And if they're cheating, God knows, and He's going to take that into account. So have courage. Be encouraged. I love you. God loves you. At least there's one person in this world thinking of you today, and that's me. Stay blessed. Bye, guys.